Uh,
Oh, did I not play the intro? Hang on one second, everybody. Whoop. I don't know why I didn't do that.
yeah, it says we're live.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
Alon! How was WrestleMania?
It was fun, Derek. It was fun. I think if I was a little kid, it would have been completely mind blowing. But as an adult, it was still fun. Hey, I think there's some adults out there who really do get into it and are still into it, and that's cool. But I think for me, like say a 10 out of 10 would be like going to the best playoff game or Super Bowl ever. This is like a six or seven, 6, 7.
So, there you go. Like the kids
Yeah.
like to do these days.
I didn't think I was going there, and then I did.
You have to these days. Whenever, obviously in numerical order, 7 comes after 6. So you just got to acknowledge that dumb thing that kids say these days. So what were the highlights? And I saw, like, I guess John Cena made his return after, I guess he got his death in WWE.
His death, he's done wrestling, and that happened a while ago, I guess. So he was
he also turned
host?
heel. Yeah. He was the host. Okay.
Yeah, he showed up in a suit and he like introed something at the very start, like said welcome, and then at the very end he did an intro, and that was it. But I thought a pretty big highlight was Pat McAfee got his ass kicked. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I heard about that. Who did the ass kicking?
This guy that I didn't know was a singer, Jelly Roll. So the first time I'd ever heard of Jelly Roll was actually last year at WrestleMania. He was there.
Oh, you know about Jelly
like,
Roll?
I didn't know if he was a comedian or a singer or what this guy was.
He's like a big country rapper.
Yeah, I didn't know. And so he is in wrestling now sometimes, and he kind of kicked Pat McAfee's ass along with what's his name, Randy Orton. So that was interesting to watch. But yeah, no, it was just a fun event. But yeah, Pat McAfee, dude, that guy can get it done. He should stay in WWE as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, he's thoroughly entertaining, it sounds like, in WWE. Was there a moment, I saw it briefly yesterday, where I guess Tyrese Halliburton and George Kittle were like a duo together, and at one point Halliburton was going to drink a beer, and then George Kittle just snatched it from him.
Yeah, no, that was cool, and they put it on the on all the jumbotrons and everything like that. But yeah, so they were sitting maybe like 4 or 5 rows away from the ring, Derek, and so they showed George Kittle having a beer, then they showed another athlete, they showed someone else, then they showed Halliburton, and then they showed Halliburton and Kittle together, and Halliburton's got his beer, and Kittle just snatches it from him, chugs it right in front of him too, and the crowd went nuts, and it was pretty cool. And George Kittle, I guess, goes to a lot of these events.
Oh yeah.
And Halliburton does as well. So I think that was, they always try to put some shine on everybody who goes to their events. Guess who got the biggest booze of the night? Besides, I think
Stephen
Logan
A. Smith.
It was. It was Logan Paul, and then Stephen A. Smith, I think, actually got a few more.
Yeah, because
I cheered for him. I cheered for Stephen A. Smith. I mean, you got to respect.
Was it a courtesy cheer, Alon, though, or do you actually, give praise to the man?
I respect his athletic career. Apparently one of the greatest high school basketball players ever, I think. Have you ever got into those stories about how good of an athlete he was? I don't know.
I mean, I'll definitely take his word for it. It's like a LeVar Ball situation where I don't care, dude.
Yeah, I don't care either. But it was courtesy, but also like, hey, the guy is entertaining. And if we're here at an entertainment event, those boos are also like cheers, and he loved them too, because those boos mean that people still care.
Now with Logan Paul's act, I should say, I saw the other day he went on First Take and acted like he didn't want to be there, and I'm sure that's part of it. What is his deal right now? Like, do people take him seriously, or is it just part of the character?
People hate him. I can't remember a guy that was able to draw, what do they call it in the wrestling business? They call it heat. A guy who's been able to draw as much heat as quickly as he has in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do something mean, like push a kid in a wheelchair down the stairs or something like that, which Logan Paul hasn't done, but like he acts like he would do that, and that gets people to hate him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he pushed a kid in a wheelchair.
But yeah, so what's that scene that Paul Rudd used to always play on Conan O'Brien's show?
It's from
Mac and Me.
It was like a knockoff E.T. And anytime Paul Rudd was promoting a movie, he would play that clip from that really obscure movie, and every time Conan in the audience would be just cracking up because they didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, and he kept doing it. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, here's a clip from my new movie," and then it's that kid in the wheelchair going down the hill. It's so good.
And then that alien just pops up at the end, and be like, "Oh no!" It's a great clip. Well, I'm glad you had fun. And you went with your sister. Your sister's into wrestling as well, Alon?
Yeah. So I mean, I was really into it. Me and my brother when we were kids, obviously, like NWO, WCW, all that kind of stuff. And then actually when I was a kid, my uncle's like cousin or brother, I can't remember, he worked for WWF at the time, and he was one of their technical like camera and producer people.
Right.
And so when I was a kid, this is crazy. I got to go to Stamford, Connecticut and go to their headquarters. And if you're like a wrestling nerd at like 10 years old, that is like going to Larry Flint's Hustler Club or something. No, you go and it's just like, oh my, it's like going to the Hall of Fame. That's what it felt like. It was like going to the NFL Hall of Fame. And yeah, that was a little off color. I shouldn't have said that. But the thing is, it was so amazing. And also got to go to WWF New York. So yeah, like I was into it. I mean, I got the autographs back here, so I was into it. But yeah, my sister, she likes it. I think it definitely appeals to people who really like, you know, soap operas now. And it's always been a soap opera, but I think people who really like, you know, bad theater, I guess is what it is. It's really, I don't know if you know Werner Herzog, but
of course, the director.
Yeah, the director, exactly. He actually has a great quote
Amazing
about
voice.
it. He said, I can't. They asked him, why do you watch wrestling? He goes, it's the rawest, like most unfiltered theater there is. It's trash, but I like it, and I can't stay away from it. So I think that's who it appeals to. But it was fun. I will say this about Logan Paul: that dude's an athlete, man.
Yeah.
He can flip and move through the air. It's insane.
Can he play on the football field, though, when he's calling out Tom Brady and other former NFL players when they're doing that flag football thing? Well, and again, like that's like for show and everything, but
he said he had 6 touchdowns, Derek, in high school and like 800 rushing yards.
You know, you always got to take people's word for it when they bring up their high school career.
Hey, he didn't inflate 6 touchdowns and 800 rushing yards. So is that
that seems reasonable? That definitely seems reasonable.
Tom Brady hit him with Derrick Henry had like 3,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in one season or whatever.
No, dude, Derrick Henry's high school stats are unfucking believable. It's insane. Well, I'm glad you had a good time, Alon. Just your opinion, man. Alon to say, Derek Papa coming to you on a Sunday afternoon. We're going to have 2 shows today. So if you're watching on the stream, and I'm assuming that people didn't realize we were going on at 1:30 today, so people jump on later, that's cool. But if you're listening on the podcast version, there's going to be a Larry Krueger interview that we're going to play later today at 5 o'clock live on YouTube, and that'll be on YouTube only. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can that'll be available tomorrow morning on Monday early on, so you can listen to the interview and me and Larry go through the NFL draft, everybody that he's looking at for the 49ers, and some of the big names that won't be available for the 49ers at 27. Then we'll go much earlier, and what he thinks about Fernando Mendoza and Arvell Reese and a lot of people in the NFL draft. We had a huge trade yesterday. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Dexter Lawrence gets traded to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick. Did not see that coming. And we'll go through the offensive linemen of this draft. I know that's not the most sexiest position to go look at. And I'll leave that up to you, Alon, because that I don't really know what I'm looking for. You played offensive line back in high school, right?
Played defensive end and outside linebacker.
Oh, never mind. You did not play offensive line. Well, regardless.
My best friend did, and I was coached by NFL players, so I'm pretty in depth with how offensive lines work.
Yeah, John Perella coached you, right, in high school?
He was our head coach. Rod Woodson was another one of our coaches.
That's awesome.
Jonathan Taves was my defensive line coach, who was a rotational defensive lineman for the Raiders for a few years when Chuck Bresnahan was DC. Yeah. So, yeah, and a lot of guys that I played with either went to, a few Division I colleges, but then a few other like stayed in coaching. John's son is actually the strength training coach down at like Louisiana or something like that. So yeah, we try to stay in touch. A lot of us do, and still talk football. I mean, we didn't know that we were getting kind of a high level football education at the time, but we did.
No, especially with retired players and Rod Woodson. I mean, it's one of my favorite players of all time, so that's awesome that he was one of your coaches. But we'll go through the offensive line today, and I'll rely on you more for that because I'll be honest, when I'm looking at offensive line, I really don't know what I'm looking at. Like with defensive linemen and wide receivers, you could see like, okay, this guy has it or he doesn't. And, that's never like set in stone. It could translate, it could not. But at least you know what you're looking for. Is this guy getting to the quarterback? Are the wide receivers catching footballs? With offensive linemen, yes, are you blocking your guy? But is it going to be where it translates to the NFL? They have like a good anchor and all that stuff. I'm not well versed in that, so I'll ask you about that later on in the show. But let's start with the Golden State Warriors as their season came to an end on Friday night. And I'm not too surprised. I'm also not too bummed because, as I said last time, this season wasn't fantastic. Was the game on Wednesday night amazing? Absolutely. And it gave you nostalgia and, chills, feels, whatever you want to say, good vibes from back in the day. But did I think they were going to go on a long run here? No. And they're not deserving of a championship run. Like, I can't stand when teams below 500 advance in the postseason because, I don't know, they cut corners, whether it was the Seattle Seahawks or any of these recent teams like the 8-9 Carolina Panthers that went to the postseason this year. Just because you won your division, I give you props for that, but you shouldn't beat other teams that had better records, unless it just comes down to that you were the better team. But good for the Warriors to get that victory on Wednesday. Friday night, they kind of look like the team they were for the majority of the season. When Pods is your leading scorer, when Steph Curry's healthy, that's not a good formula for success, with 23 points for Pods. Also led the team in rebounds. Not great. And Curry had an off night. He had 17 points, 4 of 16, 3 of 10 from 3. Porzingis only had 5 shots the entire game. Al Horford didn't have his magic like he did in the fourth quarter, only 9 points, 3 of 8 from the field. They had 21 turnovers, and that's usually Warriors basketball, but they also have to shoot the lights out at the same time. So we'll get into everything after the game because I think that was the bigger story, but just your thoughts on the loss, Alon, to the Phoenix Suns.
It was tough. I mean, they put themselves in a real hole to start, and they were they were down by 20 after the end of the first quarter. And
whatever it was, it felt like a lot though. Yeah,
it was like 32-15 or something like that. It was tough. Danny Dunn says,
"What's up, Danny? Saving the chat today."
Uninspired end to an uninspired season. Good time at GPS though.
That's the Glen Park station where me and Danny Dunn were watching the game. Danny Dunn's my board op. He's a fill-in producer at KMBR, does a great job. But yeah, me and him were watching the game on Friday night.
Good spot, GPS.
I mean, like we're in Daly City now, so there's not a lot of options when it comes to bars. So me and him just hop on BART. We go down 2 BART stations, and then Glen Park Station is literally at the Glen Park Station, just a bar right next to the BART station. That's
sick. I love that. That's awesome. But
it's a good little area.
Okay, I'll check it out next time I'm in the in San Francisco / Bay Area. But yeah, it was tough. They got into within reach a few times, but it definitely looked like a team that was tired. It looked like a team that really left it all out there against the Clippers, and maybe there was some more in the gas tank. And they showed that there was a little bit left because were able to get it within 5, within 7 a few times, things like that. But they just were never able to come up with the consistent defensive stops. And I know the shots weren't falling, Derek, but they weren't able to defend the 3-point line at all, especially in the second half. And as the game wore on and went later and later, it was really tough for them. The rebounding was bad. The turnovers, I'm always expecting that, even though this team has been great under Steve Kerr for the last, over a decade. Turnovers have always been their Achilles heel. It just because of the style they play. But usually, like you said, they shoot the lights out, and they weren't able to do that. I thought it was sad that Porzingis could only play 15 minutes, and that seemed like that was definitely precautionary because after the last time he got subbed out, he immediately put like his warm-up, his shooting shirt on and all that stuff again, and it looked like he wasn't going to come in. Al Horford, tried, but he couldn't recreate any of that stuff he did the other night. It was just tough, and they looked like a tired and beaten up team. And I'm not talking about mentally beaten. I just mean physically. And It's because of the season they've had. They've had guys just coming back from injury. They've had guys have multiple injuries. They're older and they don't have the depth. They don't, without the star players being able to play a lot of minutes and or score a lot, they don't have the depth to sustain anything, especially in a one-game situation.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too bummed out. Like I said, like this season has been slog to watch. Like it's just like, I kudos to Pat Spencer, kudos to Brandon Pajemski and Quentin Post and everybody holding things down while Steph Curry was out. Really Draymond Green. And this is going to sound, kind of funny, but good on him to actually play and care when your partner is not there for the majority of the season. And I think, Draymond actually said it best. He did his podcast yesterday, and there was multiple times, I guess, this season where he was thinking about quitting and just being like, I'm not going to play. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And Steve Kerr said to him, man, like, you need to set the precedent for everybody else on this team. You need to be the leader. And honestly, Draymond didn't say this, but the reason he needs to play is because he needs to put something on tape. Where you never want to say that for Draymond Green because he's such an accomplished player in this league and deserving of everything that's come with it, of the 4 championships. But when they could trade you at the deadline for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you're going into the offseason where you could opt in, you can opt out, then you probably should play. It's in your best interest to play. So Draymond was amazing on Wednesday night. Everybody was great on Wednesday night. But it shows like that's just one game against a lowly Clippers team, and the Phoenix Suns were better than what they were in recent years. Obviously, with them trying to go big with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, they just kept things simple this year with Devin Booker and bringing over Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, and it was just the youth of the Phoenix Suns outlasting this aging Warriors team, and that's what I keep bringing up is I just don't know if they can compete with young teams right now, where it's been 2 years in a row now where we've seen Steph Curry miss time, and that basically is what did them in. It was him missing time in the playoffs against Minnesota last year, and then him missing 27 games, and ultimately them making the play-in still. But if there's any other, competent teams in the Western Conference that are trying to play and they're not tanking, then the Warriors are on the outside looking in. So it is what it is. They're going to have troubles like this going forward. I would like them to not be a play-in team every year. I'd like them to contend once again and be a top 6 Western Conference team. But we'll see what happens. So immediately when the game is over, in the closing seconds, I should say, the part that got me was Steve Kerr huddling with Draymond Green and Steph Curry. If we could play that clip along. I saw that immediately, and I spoke to Danny and spoke to I was texting with our guy Greg Silver, and to me that stood out because that you don't usually see that at the end of a Warriors season. Even though there's been moments where this could be the end for Draymond, this could be the end of Klay Thompson. It never was where they were acknowledging that on the court and being like, this could be a gentleman. So as soon as Steve did that, I was like, ooh, what's going to happen here? And we've heard reports in recent weeks that Steve is planning to come back for a last dance run, but you never know. And so, Steve, after the game, was asked, what did you say to Steph and Draymond? He said, it's none of your business, but he was mic'd up, and the Amazon Prime cameras got it, and Mike's got it. So this is what Steve told Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
I don't know what's going to happen next, but I love you guys to death, and thank you. I appreciate you.
So, yeah, it's simple, and, I understand why he wanted that moment to be private. And Steve Kerr in the past has been burned by TV cameras and, in other mic'd up moments where he's talking to Kevin Durant and that blew up in his face, where I don't think he said anything bad. If you remember that, Alon, during the Western Conference Finals, where he told Kevin Durant, move the ball a little bit more, and that was blown out of proportion. Steve got pissed off with his former employer in TNT. But when you see that, you're like, okay, he's acknowledging that this could be it. And I'll be honest, I thought that Steve, early on this season, looked like he just looked tired. Mm-hmm. He looked like, not that he didn't want to be there, but it just wasn't the same joy. The line I kept using was Steve Kerr, when he was coaching, during the championship runs, he kept emphasizing playing with joy. And I didn't think that Steve was necessarily coaching with joy this year. I thought he was just getting through it. And there's elements to the job he still loves. Obviously, he loves coaching Steph Curry. That's why he's doing this job. That's why he took the job in the first place. Let's be honest. He could have joined the Knicks and been with his mentor and Phil Jackson, but he, got off that plane and went with Joe and Bob and Peter Guber and everybody. And he wanted to coach this team because his daughter was playing, I think, volleyball or basketball, whatever it was, at Cal. But yes, it was a better opportunity to coach this great player in Steph Curry. And for Steve, he acknowledged it numerous times this year where they're a fading dynasty. Telling Tom Tolbert we're not as good as OKC or San Antonio or Denver. And that is the truth. But it really was the Kuminga stuff. I do believe that pissed him off, where he had a player that was undermining him and he was, kind of siding up to the owner, and the owner was giving him favoritism, and Steve was just fed up with it. So once they got rid of Kuminga, I thought Steve was way happier, in a better mood. And even though they weren't, this dominant team this year, he liked the scrappiness of talented guys in Guy Santos and Pods and Quinton Post. And I also think that, I'm going on and on here, Alon, but just one more thing. Like, the fact that Joe Lacob, in an email, I don't know if you saw this earlier this season, Alon, but there was a moment this year where Joe Lacob was responding to a fan that emailed him saying he's pissed off about the team. And Joe said, I hear all of your criticisms. A lot of it is the coach. The fact that he acknowledged that, I'm like, dude, Joe, why do you have to do that, man? And then, of course, that fan posted that email online, and Steve played it off because Joe's going to be Joe. We know that Joe's a pain in the ass. You can hear it from the Bob Myers press conference when he was leaving, and that's the reason why Bob Myers left. I always wondered if Joe Lacob would be the reason why Steve Kerr wants to leave, and other reasons. Kuminga, everything I just mentioned. But now that Kuminga's gone, I think that Steve could tolerate one more year and do what's best for Steph Curry in the final years of him playing basketball. But I do think that a lot got to Steve this year. So while I do anticipate him coming back for one more season, I wouldn't be surprised if he said goodbye. And he's earned it at this point with being a Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion, with 4 championships.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why he was. I mean, look, Joe Lacob should have never responded. Number one, probably don't respond to fans. That's probably just a good policy. Personally, as an owner,
I hear you on that, but that's just going to be Joe. Like, yeah. I have a lot of issues with Joe Lacob, but at the end of the day, he is a great owner. Sure. I wish he wouldn't do that shit, but he does.
Yeah, no, I get it. Maybe go on the radio instead, do what Jerry Jones does. But talk about a guy who throws coaches under the bus. But
yeah,
that wasn't great. Especially Steve Kerr is, outside of the players, Steve Kerr is the reason that this team has been as dominant as they are. It's because of the style and the pace that they play with, him enabling Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to shoot the lights out, him being able to juggle different personalities, keep things together during the Durant era as best as he could, keep Draymond Green on this team and mostly productive even through the latter half of his career here. So Steve Kerr, I think rightfully so, does still love coaching, but was very disenchanted with how things were going, especially when Kuminga was still on the team, like you pointed out. And I don't blame him for that. They were asking him to do things with not, make a great meal, but they didn't buy him the right groceries, basically. And then the groceries went bad. They got injured. That's what happened. So I think he'll be back because he wants to see this thing out with Steph and however it ends, and he'll go out on top. And I don't say that meaning he'll win a championship. I just mean Steve Kerr will go out on top. He's the greatest coach the Warriors have ever had, and he's the greatest, maybe one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen in Bay Area history. I mean, got to be him and Bill Walsh, right?
I would say
him, Bill Walsh, and John Madden.
I would say if you're going to do a Mount Rushmore, it has to be Steve Kerr, Bill Walsh, Bruce Bochy.
Yep.
I love Madden.
Tony La Russa?
No. Tony and John are debatable. If we're going like just, does Tara Vanderveer count, you think, Alon?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, Stanford.
Yeah.
We have this debate on the radio, and There's an argument to be had that Steve Kerr could be the greatest coach in Bay Area history, where Bill Walsh only coached, I think it was 9 seasons, 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Bruce Bochy, yes, great with the Giants. Went on to also the Texas Rangers, and prior to that with the San Diego Padres. Madden, of course, accomplished as a coach, lost many conference championship games. Yeah, I think there's an argument to be had that Steve Kerr, and I say this, Steve Kerr had the greatest season for a first-year head coach in the history of sports for what he did in 2015 to come on the scene and take that team, elevate that team from where they were as a 6th seed to the number 1 seed and being dominant as they were in 2015 with 67 wins. So, yeah, there's an argument to be had with Steve Kerr, but what he's accomplished as a head coach, I hate this idea that Stephen A. Smith even brings up to this day is, well, it was Mark Jackson's team and Steve Kerr just took it for a little bit of time and, anybody could coach that team. Bullshit. Fucking shit that anybody could have coached this team. With those many personalities, just take the example of Steve Nash, where he took the Brooklyn Nets job. And I love Steve Nash as a player. He could not handle the personalities of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. They walked all over him. And you saw it in the end where Kevin Durant wanted Steve Nash fired. And there was a great playoff game with the Bucks and Nets coming out of the COVID year in 2020. It was 2021 where they all were playing together, those 3 guys. And there was one game where Kevin Durant just went off, and Steve Nash hugged him because he didn't have a game plan. He was like, "Oh, thank God you bailed me." Steve Kerr, he took the 3-point shooting of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and turned it into the Spurs offense. Like I was so frustrated watching Mark Jackson's Warriors, where they were fun and electric and really good on defense, but there was nothing to X's and O's about it. There was just like Mark Jackson just the whole time being like, all right, well, they got the best backcourt of all time and, they'll figure it out. No, scheme it up. Steve Kerr, he took that basketball that I loved in the summer of 2014, what the Spurs did with the ball movement to beat up on the Miami Heat. He took that to the Golden State Warriors in 2015. So don't act like Steve Kerr was just some bum, some former player that got an opportunity to coach this team, and Steph Curry, was the reason. Yes, Steph Curry was the reason, and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, but Steve Kerr also was the guy that was guiding them. So yeah. I don't want to hear it. Like when the day comes that Steve Kerr retires from coaching, I want to give him his flowers, but also I want to call out all the people out there, whatever his name is, this one guy on Twitter, Park, I don't even know his first name, this clown that goes after Steve Kerr all the fucking time. Can't stand it. There's some media members, too, that don't come out and say it, but they kind of like dance around the whole thing of Steve Kerr not being a good coach. That's bullshit to me. Steve Kerr is an amazing coach. He won me over from day one, but he really won me over with telling Tim Kawakami during the finals, yeah, no, Andrew Bogut's going to play. And then, no, he had, the death lineup, the Hamptons 5, or what became the Hamptons 5 later on. But Andre Iguodala starting in that series, and then he told Tim Kawakami, with all due respect, Tim, I don't need to tell you the truth. There's no morals in coaching, and I love that. I love how outspoken he is. I love a lot about Steve Kerr and the person that he is. So, yeah, man, I hope that he comes back for one more year because I think he deserves it. I think that I'm sorry. He always deserves more time coaching, and Joe Lacob will give him that if Steph Curry says, "I want you back." And pretty much Steph Curry and Draymond Green have openly campaigned for Steve Kerr to return. But I think he deserves a season where we know this is probably it, and the fans appreciate him because I think he's been throwing a lot of shit his way the last few years.
I've never understood the fans or media members, but media, I get it a little bit because you're trying to drive something, create content, whatever. Not my brand of media, but that's the way it works usually now. But in terms of fans who have been fed up at different points with Steve Kerr, especially when the team is bad, and it's usually because the roster's not good or injuries have piled up, give me a freaking break. I can't stand it. One of the things Steve Kerr brought to this team, you mentioned it, the style of play. But has there been a better coach over the past 10 years at getting easy points off of inbounds plays? No, there hasn't. Steve Kerr has figured out how to not just have this team play the way they should play at times and be extremely dominant, but he's also not just rested on his laurels going, like what you said, Mark Jackson, well, we most talented backcourt. No. He's always looking at the margins, trying to figure out where to get better, what to exploit, how to beat other teams without just relying on the pure dominant star power. That is something I'll always love about Steve Kerr. He coaches every facet of the game. He knows defense is important, but he knows you also got to score more points. He deserves another year, like you said, just because he's a great coach, but also he deserves another year where the cupboard isn't bare, where injuries don't pile up, where they actually give him something that he can go out on and really be competitive. That's what I want to see. I can't stand this was Mark Jackson's team. Yeah, it was. And then he got fired and they hired Steve Kerr. They win 60-plus games and go pull off a mega upset with Harrison Barnes and Andre Iguodala and guys like that. You know, I know you have Steph Curry, Draymond, and Clay, but they go beat LeBron James, who's at the peak of his powers. So I hate hearing it. It's the same thing we used to hear with, well, the Bucks were Tony Dungy's team. Yeah, Tony Dungy couldn't win a Super Bowl with that team. Guess who did? John Gruden. And I'm not saying John Gruden is the greatest coach of all time, but for that team in that year, he was, and that matters. So I hate those arguments of, oh, this is their team or this guy's team. Skills Report put it in the chat. Phil Jackson's Lakers three-peat. Partial credit to Del Harris. Yeah, sure, the guy was there, and I know what you're saying, Skills, but yeah, that's Phil Jackson's team. This is Steve Kerr's team. These are guys who have been able to be the architects, build this thing, and get the culture the right way and play the way they're supposed to. So, yeah, Steve Kerr deserves it. I've always hated the Steve Kerr slander. I've never understood it. I have not understood it from when I was living in the Bay Area, then outside looking in. I've never understood it. I don't get where it comes from. I know the fans are spoiled and they want more championships and more wins, but give me a freaking break. How many championships do we think this team has if Mark Jackson – if Mark Jackson is still the head coach? One?
No, you're saying playoff appearances or championships won?
Championships. How many rings? One?
With Mark Jackson, I don't think I think that he would have been out coached by these other teams, these other coaches in the Western Conference. I don't think that Mark Jackson comes up with a great game plan against. I mean, yeah, maybe even some bad coaches have won championships, but I have my doubts where the Western Conference was so competitive back then, Alon, where you have the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, that I don't think that Mark Jackson, he wasn't an X and O's coach. He didn't have the foresight to game plan. So no, I don't think that he does come up with something against these lesser teams. The better coaching probably wins in the end. So no, I'm not giving any credit to Mark Jackson. I'm sorry. I know that I'll give him credit for those first two seasons that got the Warriors to the postseason, but after that, everything I throw to Steve Kerr with them being championship, a championship team. It's not because of Mark Jackson. It's all because of Steve Kerr. So we'll see what happens here. And Steve Kerr in the press conference after the game said that he's going to think for a little bit of time, probably take a couple weeks, and then come to Joe and everybody and talk about his future. So this is Steve Kerr talking about his plans for the offseason, and also he's not going anywhere. Like, this isn't a thing where he's going to coach the Spurs. That was a rumor out there. It's either the Warriors or nothing for Steve Kerr.
I mean, that's really, it's part of the equation, right? I mean, I don't want to walk away from stuff. I'm definitely not going and coaching somewhere else next year. In the NBA. I mean, I'm just, I would never walk away from Steph, but all this stuff has to be aligned and right. And so those are all discussions that we'll have. That's what I said from the beginning of the season. I felt great coming into this year. I thought we had a real chance. With Jimmy and Moses going down, obviously it took us off track, but we have to account for all of that stuff. And, this is just a phenomenal organization. And Joe is a great owner. Mike is a wonderful GM. And I'm lucky to work with them. And like I said, we'll all put our heads together next couple of weeks.
And there needs to be a clear plan this offseason. And we know that, all the rumors out there that they're going to go after LeBron or Kawhi or Giannis. And I get why they want to do that, because that's what you have to do when you have Steph Curry at this point. It's not where like the ideal thing would be to rebuild, but you're not going to do that right now because there's only a few amount of seasons left with Steph Curry. That's why what happened on Wednesday night was so special because you don't know how many more of those moments you're going to have. So it's a missed opportunity. I thought they could have rebuilt a few years ago and moved on from Draymond and Clay, but that would have been hard to swallow those moments. And now we're living it now with Klay Thompson. But yeah, I'm for this. I keep comparing it to like a long franchise, like Scream or Fast and Furious or Mission Impossible. They're all not great at the end, but it's really just because you love the storylines and the characters. That's why you're sticking with it because the family, exactly. Like that's what
it's true though.
No, it is, and that's why that's the same thing with the Warriors. You feel like family, like one more cookout with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr. So I want him to come back. I think it would be good to have one last season with Steve Kerr where we know he's going to walk away after next season, but at least the fans appreciate him because I think he deserves that at this point. So, yeah, I could see, Steve not loving the job at early parts of this year, and then he got into a little bit more. Maybe it's just because he feels beat down after games where to answer questions about Kuminga just gets tiresome. But I do think if Steph tells him just one last ride, then I think that he would be down for it. So that's what I'm hoping that Steve comes to in the next couple of weeks here.
I think also, with their strategy into this offseason, which is going to be getting an older player, an older superstar or star caliber player, I think that's also the point where not just Steph, Draymond, and guys like that are at with this team. They want to play with guys who are established. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to be, jerks or not bring younger guys along. Clearly, they're going to still be leaders and play the game the right way and try to help out how they can. But Steve Kerr, I think, wants to deal with that level of player and those people who are in the stage of their careers too. He doesn't want to be caught up in. It's hard because he's a coach, right? And right. He does develop players, but he does not want to be caught up in player development. He wants to not just win now, but he wants to be with guys who are established, who know what they're doing, and where he can not put the thing on autopilot, but he doesn't have to do all the micromanaging for the other stuff. He just has to focus on basketball. And I think even if it is LeBron, and I know people in the Bay Area have their opinions on him, and people around the country have their opinions on him because he's been such a mercenary going to different places. But one thing's for sure. If he gets here in this building's culture, it's not going to be the LeBron James who's dictating everything. It's just not. It's because it won't work that way. And he will know that coming into it too. He would never come here thinking that he's going to be able to dominate everything. So I think Steve Kerr and everybody who's been here for a while wants that kind of team that it's like, hey, we know what we got to do. We're at the end. We're at the last ride, as you say, Derek. And Steve gets to just focus fully on basketball. That maybe some personality management here and there, just because everybody's human. But it's not going to be this, oh, well, what are you going to do about Kuminga? Or, should you play him like this? No, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, look, we're trying to win basketball games, and we're getting back. It'll be the way that he had to coach the team in 2018 when he had Kevin Durant. That's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah.
So the biggest task is going to be personality management.
No, 100%. And the biggest thing, that year, 2018, not so much with the storylines. 2019 was when everything came with all the bullshit where, the questions about KD, is he going to come back after the season, and the fight that happened between him and Draymond. That's the stuff that ruined that year for me.
Yeah.
For Steve, there's no, it would just be about his future, and he won't answer that every single time. So it would just be where, yes, if you get a LeBron, if you get a Giannis, if you get a Kawhi, then you're definitely going to be looked at as a contender, but will it play out that way on the court? Real quick, I want to play these two clips from Draymond Green and Steph Curry. We wonder about Draymond Green's future as well. He is, he's got an option this offseason, a player option. Could he opt out and sign for more money? Or could he opt in and potentially be traded? If they do want to get Kawhi, they have to trade for him. And would it be where they move Draymond and get him? I don't know. I think everybody wants Draymond to stay, and you saw that with Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Joe Lacob when asked about Draymond's future. They're like, well, Draymond was never shopped. Of course, he was part of trade conversations for Giannis. You have to include him. But Is it where they're openly shopping him? No. But if there's an opportunity to get a better player this offseason, then yeah, they may move on from Draymond Green. But from Draymond's perspective, I thought that maybe, with the news of that would kind of piss him off and he would opt out and be like, you know what, if that's how you guys feel about me, then I'm moving on to a different team. Not the case. Draymond Green makes it abundantly clear here. If the Warriors want him, he will stay for another season with them.
Yeah, so that season ending, but just what's your current thought on your future?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not retiring from basketball. I still love to play. I think I'm still pretty decent. But this league we're in it's an interesting one. And it's one that you don't really control everything. So for me, I hope I've done enough to still be here. Because at the end of the day, if I ain't done enough, I don't want to be here. I don't, like I've told y'all before, I don't ever want we're just going to keep him around because what he's done before. Like, what can I still do? And by the way, that's not just playing, right? Like, that's leadership. That's helping bring the young guys along. That's helping move the organization forward. Like, so, hopefully I've done enough to still be here. But if not, we'll see what it looks like. It's been a hell of a run. So I hope I've got high enough in the meter of doing things. If not, then we'll see what happens next. But if the question is where I want to be, I think it's pretty obvious, guys. Like, where the hell I'm going. If they want me here, I'll be right here.
That's all you need to hear from Draymond. If they want me here, I'll be right here. And I like the fact that he said it's not even about my performance on the court. It's also about myself as a leader. And I thought that he definitely took steps forward this season, where in years past, he was selfish with his antics and some of his, acts, violent acts on the court that were the detriment to the team, of him getting suspended or him missing time due to, doing therapy because he needed to look into that. Draymond acknowledges that, he needs to grow up a little bit, and he has in these last few years. So I commend him for that, and I commend him for being a leader and being involved and, focused during this season where there wasn't a lot to look forward to. And, we'll see what happens here. It may be where they give him a contract extension. And if he opts out, that's just part of the business to get more money. And if they trade him, it's part of the business too. But it seems clear that Draymond Green is reasonable in whatever happens, for this season with him and the Golden State Warriors, whether it's him on the team or him being traded for something better. At least at this point in his career, he understands that that's just part of the game.
No, that answer completely sounded like a guy who not just wants to be back, but is also not being ignorant of the business side of things. He fully understands that there is a business here at the end of the day too, and that he does not have ultimate control on what's going to happen with his future. But he said nothing that would indicate him not wanting to be back. So I thought he handled it perfectly. He wants to be back is what it sounds like, but he also says, look, if they want me back, that's great. And basically I want that. But, there's also the business aspect where I don't have the control over that.
Right. And then finally, Steph Curry spoke about Steve Kerr's future. And look, he always wants Steve to be his coach. I think that it was interesting early on when Mark Jackson was fired and Steve Kerr was brought in, how Steph was going to react to that. And I can't imagine anybody I can't imagine anybody else, coaching this basketball team, to be completely honest. Like at this point, like it's just, Steve Kerr synonymous with the Golden State Warriors. They're tied at the hip together. Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and Draymond Green together. So when you ask Steph, like, yes, of course he wants him back, but also he's respectful of his feelings and the decision that he wants to make this offseason.
When that it is, his choice, how much of a preference is it for him to still be here?
I want Coach to be happy. I want him to be excited about the job. I want him to believe, he's the right guy for the job. I want him to, have an opportunity to, again, enjoy what he does. So whatever that means for him, everybody's plan is their own, and I'm not gonna try to tell anybody what to do. He knows how I feel about it. That shouldn't even need to be said, but you know, however it goes, you're excited about, or not excited, you're thankful for what we've been able to accomplish over this run. Thankful for an opportunity, hopefully, to put it together to do something again next year. And again, I just want Coach to be able to look at the situation as a whole and feel like he's the right guy.
Yes. Sorry. When the
And that quote was interesting to me, where he said, "I want Coach to be happy. I want Coach to feel good about the job and feel like he's the right guy for the job." And I think that's the first time I've heard that, where someone is acknowledging that Steve wasn't enjoying coaching the team anymore. And I'm sure they've had those conversations. And yeah, I saw it on Steve Kerr's face multiple times, where he didn't look like he was enjoying himself. It wasn't, the same thing anymore. He wasn't coaching with joy. So I asked that numerous times this year during the season to Sam Amick and and Marcus Thompson and Danny Emmerman and John Dickinson. They all were like, "Yeah, Steve's okay," but I think everybody could tell behind the scenes Steve wasn't 100% happy, and it really was the Kuminga situation, and probably Joe Lacob as well. So yeah, I think that Steve seemed to be in a better mood as the season went on. So yeah, last point about this, I just hope he comes back, because I want him to smile and have a good time in one last year where it's not a burden on him. And also, if they do go all out this offseason to get a big time player, they need Steve Kerr, because bringing in a new head coach, even if that is Terry Stotts, who has a ton of experience coaching the Portland Trailblazers, you want Steve Kerr to be a part of that if they're trying to go for one last championship.
Yeah, it has to be Steve Kerr. I think you've kind of set this up for Steve Kerr to go out in this way, and you've set it up for all these other players to have this kind of last run as well. So don't break it up now. Don't think it's so tough. Don't think about the future, because we're already past that point. If you were thinking about the future, you would have started making different moves about 2 to 3 years ago, and they haven't done that. So you have to see this thing out. You have to bring Steve back. And I loved what Steph said. You can tell that those two guys are just tied at the hip. That is that they're, even though Steve's older, they're brothers. They're brothers in arms is basically what it is. And that's his guy. And that's just the way it's going to be. So yeah, I don't want to see Steve go anywhere. Preferably, I always will love to watch him coach, but if he's going to end up not being here, I don't want to see him really coach anywhere else, not for a while at least. So
no,
and I don't think he wants to, because I think he also sees things, Derek, you get spoiled coaching great players who care and give a damn and want to go in and night out and play the game. I mean, how many times I bet throughout this Warriors run has maybe the front office or guys said, well, maybe we should rest this guy. Maybe we should rest this guy. And those players are like, no, to hell with that. I want to play. If I can play, I want to play. And I think Steve loves that, and he probably also knows that is not the kind of player we see all the time anymore. It's just not the reality of the league these days. So I think this is perfectly set up for Steve to coach his last year with the Warriors. And, maybe Steph has a few years after that all ends, but this is set up for the last ride, as you've said it. I think that is the perfect, the Bulls had the last dance. The Warriors are going to have the last ride. And I think they have to go through with this.
The final reckoning, I'll call it, for this last Warriors season. And Steph Curry, this will not be his final reckoning, because he was asked straight up in the post game, do you want to have multiple seasons left with the Warriors? And he goes, yes. Yeah. And someone asked him about contract extension talks, and he goes, that hasn't happened yet, but it will be a long off season for the Golden State Warriors. So I'm assuming they'll go to the table with Steph, they'll go to the table with Draymond, and they'll go to the table with Steve Kerr. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I think that they'll all come back but we shall see, especially when it comes to who's going to be that new member of the Golden State Warriors. And of course, when Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody will return during the regular season of next year. Let's talk about this huge. Oh, sorry, real quick. I just want to bring up, since we're talking basketball, the first round of the NBA playoffs. All home teams right now leading the way. As yesterday was 4 home teams winning. Cavaliers beat the Raptors 126-113. The Nuggets, the Timberwolves. Nuggets win that series, that first game of the series, to go up 1-0. Knicks, even with the fans having fuck Trae Young chants, even though he's not on the team anymore, they win that game. So they go up 1-0. And the Lakers, even without Luka and Austin Reeves, win their game against the Rockets last night, and not a lot of offense from the Rockets without Kevin Durant. He didn't play in game 1. So Lakers are up in that series. Celtics just dominate the 76ers earlier today. And as of right now, the Thunder are dominating the Suns. So home teams going away with it right now in the first round of the NBA playoffs. All right, Alon, I want to talk about this huge trade that went down yesterday in the NFL, and we were anticipating this. Not to this degree, but I think it was pretty clear that the Giants were going to move on from Dexter Lawrence, but did they have to? Was there a deadline by the draft? And a lot of insiders were saying they don't have to do anything. It could be where this plays out all offseason, but there also is the element of John Harbaugh and the new culture they're trying to set here with the Giants. So he was like, listen, if he doesn't want to be here, then get him out of here, and we'll try to get the best possible deal. And they got the best possible deal. So yesterday, during the day, we got the news that Dexter Lawrence did get traded from the New York Giants to the Cincinnati Bengals, of all teams, for a first-round draft pick, 10th overall, that Cincinnati would have had. They give to the Giants. So now the Giants have pick 5 and pick 10. And my initial reaction was, wow, the Cincinnati Bengals don't do stuff like this. Their offseason to this point, but prior to yesterday, was kind of, an anomaly where you're like, wow, okay, they signed Boye Mafe. They signed Jonathan Allen. They got, who's it, Brian Cook, that safety. They made some moves, and I was like, all right, they're actually spending in free agency. They usually don't do that. But they needed to address the defense because it's been terrible. And I think that in recent years, Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, who's been notoriously cheap, and we all know about the contract negotiations with Trey Hendrickson this past offseason, but he has probably the greatest quarterback he's ever had on his team right now. In franchise history, Joe Burrow has more talent than Boomer Esiason or Carson Palmer or Ken Anderson. So you got to change some things up. But when he's openly talking to the media, talking about how we don't do, we need to go out and spend some money, we need to go out and fix the defense, or he's even talking about how he's not happy, he's not playing with joy, then it's incumbent on Mike Brown to also make things enticing for Joe Burrow. And then they know they have a short window here. Joe Burrow is turning 30, I think, this year. So you got to go all out. And let's be honest, too. Asses are probably on the line here with Zach Taylor, who doesn't have a contract extension. I think he's got a lame duck year this year. Duke Tobin, who's been the de facto GM since 1999, doesn't have the title of GM. But they may just get rid of him because they're not competing enough. So this move, to me, signals that the Bengals know what time it is. It's nut cutting time. They need to compete in the AFC North. Not to mention, they may have thought that at pick 10, that guys like Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs are not going to be available for them. They're probably already going to go. So I think a lot of people said the Bengals will be shit out of luck. They could go draft one of the corners, the guy from LSU or the guy from Tennessee, but they do have corners right now. It seems like to me like the Bengals thought their best option was just getting a proven player than an unproven player that might be cheaper for you, but a guy that can help you out in the run game. And they also give him a contract extension, not a long one, but Dexter Lawrence signs a 1-year deal worth $28 million. So he is the highest paid nose tackle in football, but it's only for 1 more year. So he's under contract for 3 more years. Kind of Bengals in that way where you still got to prove it to us, but at least he'll be there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, first of all, with the deadline thing, did the Giants have to do it? No, but then when you're offered a pick like that, you're going to take it. It's going to make the decision so easy. I mean, we were on here the last time we were talking about this, Derek, about a week ago now, and or maybe a little less than a week, but it didn't seem like a first-round pick was in the cards for Dexter Lawrence, not just because of the positional value, but just because the guy didn't have an amazing season last year. And yeah, it's just, do you want to spend that kind of capital for a guy like that? Well, the Bengals did, and they're probably thinking in their heads, pairing up him with Jonathan Allen on the interior is going to fix that defense very quickly. I mean, those are two guys who are able to not just play the run strong. Jonathan Allen can do it all. And Dexter Lawrence has proven that he can be a sack guy too when he gets those opportunities outside of last year. So, I mean, they had to figure out ways to fix that defense, especially in lieu of Trey Hendrickson not being there anymore. I know they got Boye Mafe. They probably still might need to look at kind of a Bosa type player, someone else to bookend something somewhere on the other side. But I'm in shock by it, Derek. And this is them signaling to everybody else and internally that they believe Joe Burrow is too talented and the receiving core is too talented, and they put up too many points to not be competitive. Yeah. So they're just pouring in all the resources they can into that one side of the field. Basically, they're saying our offense is fine. We don't care if these are the best value signings, the best value trades. It doesn't matter. If we get this defense to middle of the road, we can be a competitive team. And I agree with them if Joe Burrow stays healthy. But I'm still amazed by it. I mean, that is such – I know it's a weaker draft. I hear what you said. Maybe, Sonny Styles won't be there, or got Caleb Downs, who I think is a great player. It doesn't matter what Mike Mayock says about him. Mike Mayock's not that impressed by him, but he's an amazing player. He's a great safety. If they're not there, I get it. But, man, still, you're trading number 10 for a guy who basically asked for his way out of the last team he was with. I don't know. It's a risk. It's definitely a risk. And if the production's not there, the deal is not the worst deal in the world, but losing that draft capital is going to look horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something they don't do. And I think this is the first time, God, in 20 years, maybe even more than that. Yeah, at this point, more than 20 years, that a veteran player was traded for a top 10 pick straight up. You know who the last guy was, Alon?
Top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick where a veteran player was just traded for one singular pick that was in the top 10.
Not Carson Palmer. I don't know who it is.
Randy Moss.
From Minnesota to Oakland.
Yeah, got traded for, and I forget the haul that went for him, but it wasn't that much of a haul, actually. It was just the 7th overall pick.
And Napoleon Harris.
Oh, and Napoleon Harris. Then I guess
why do I know that?
Well, no, I do remember Napoleon Harris being part of that trade.
Yeah,
I saw that yesterday. Then I forgot Napoleon Harris was part of that deal. Then I guess it's the stat is that there was an extra compensation as far as draft capital, so just one pick, but a player was involved as well. Yeah, dude, I'm surprised the Bengals did this. Where I think that if you look at 10, yes, who's the guy? Who is the cornerback from LSU that everybody's talking about? That could be the guy that goes first.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Let me just pull it up because I don't want to.
And then there's the guy from Tennessee that was out for the majority of the season, but that 1 year in 2024, he looked great. I don't know if the Bengals are looking at cornerback right now, and I got to look at their depth chart as far as who they have, but the premier players in this draft are going to go early as far as defense. The Sonny Styles, the Arvell Reeses, the Reuben Baines, the who else is avavel?
Mansour Delane is who you're talking about.
Yeah, Delane. And then there's McCoy, I think, is the other corner. I don't know if the Bengals saw those picks as true value at 10. So why not just go get Dexter Lawrence? It could blow up in their face. It could be where, is that a little bit of a reach? Yeah, I would say so. I think that they didn't need to trade that. I wonder if there's other teams that were offering first-round picks, or the Chargers offering a first-round pick. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the Chargers were interested, but were not as aggressive, obviously. And when you are giving up a top 10 pick, it's easy for the Giants to do that. So, yeah, it's just interesting to me that the Bengals decided to go with Dexter Lawrence at 29 years old and give him a 1 year, $28 million deal where they didn't feel comfortable giving Trey Hendrickson a long-term deal. But it's different. Dexter Lawrence is younger and I guess a little bit cheaper than what Trey Hendrickson would have cost you. But just kind of interesting that they favor that over a pass rusher. And then as far as the Giants, I mean, now they're sitting pretty, dude. They got two picks in the top 10 at 5 and 10. And, we hear that John Harbaugh loves his linebackers and loves his safeties. So everybody thinks that they'll get Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs. I don't know about that. I think that there's still an argument that they could get Jeremiah Love at number 5. And then it sounds like Joe Shane is smitten with Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from ASU, where he was at his pro day on Friday and had dinner with him. So I would be the least bit surprised. I know that traditionally Harbaugh has favored linebackers and safeties and even offensive linemen. I would be the least bit surprised if they address the running back and wide receiver position to get 2 playmakers in Jeremiah Love and Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, if you're the Giants, you think Jackson Dart is as good as some people think he is, and I think he's a pretty good player. I loved him at Ole Miss. Then you have to give him some skill guys, and a running back's going to help because Cam Scatterbo, as much as people love him for he's different, whatever. He's kind of a meme. He's not a primary back. He's just not in the NFL. He doesn't have the physical attributes to do that. Great down near the goal line for sure, but. Yeah, I'm still surprised the Bengals pulled this off or did this to begin with. The Giants were never going to say no to it because they know there's a guy who's not happy being there, and they're getting a high first-round pick for it. I think another thing that went into the Bengals calculation is they play in a division with the Baltimore Ravens who love running the freaking football, and they've strengthened the defensive interior. They're strong up the middle now, at least on paper. So if they think with a healthy Joe Burrow, this is able to get them, not just a split against Baltimore, but a sweep of their division foe, then it's worth it right there because that probably means you're having a pretty damn good season and you're going to win the division.
I think they see it as the AFC North having a down year where they bring in Mike McCarthy, the Steelers do. They're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. And the Steelers made some moves too, but, Aaron Rodgers is in his early 40s. The Baltimore Ravens, if they got Max Crosby, that would have been a huge move, but they pivot to Trey Hendrickson, and they made some moves this offseason. The Browns are going to be the Browns. The Bengals looking at it as like this division's up for grabs. We should be able to get this. Ravens have a new rookie head coach. A lot of elements in that division right now, but the Bengals are like the only consistent thing, and the longest tenured coach is Zach Taylor. So why can't they win the division this year? When you have that electric of an offense and the defense has been terrible, go out and spend some money. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they go out and you mentioned they get like a Bosa type player. What if they get Joey Bosa? Wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the Bengals sign him as they get another bookend there, another edge rusher there to fix that defensive line. So, the Bengals are doing things, and good on them because I've always made fun of Mike Brown being this curmudgeon-y old owner, not willing to spend money, not willing to do anything. And when you have this caliber of a quarterback, you need to go out and do some things. So I wouldn't have given up a first-round pick for Dexter Lawrence, but the Bengals don't see value in the prospects that are going to be available at 10, so why not get a proven player at number 10? And now the Giants are working with something now where they got 2 first-round picks in the top 10, which could easily turn them around. And we'll see what they are like in the NFC East this year, where the Eagles, who knows? If A.J. Brown is traded and it's a high-pressure season for Jalen Hurts, could they take a step back? The Commanders, they made some moves this offseason, but are they going to look like themselves, the 2024 season? And then the Cowboys, they still have a lot of questions to answer, but who's to say the Giants couldn't have a Patriots season when they turn it around that quickly with a Super Bowl winning head coach and John Harbaugh? As far as the draft, Alon, I do want to talk about the offensive linemen and really the tackles because this draft is heavy with the offensive tackles and some of the guards as well. And I won't give you a top 5, but I'm just going to go through some names here, and I want to get your opinions on them. So real quick, Alon, let's just go through it. The top prospect that most people have as far as an offensive tackle in this draft, Francis Mauigoa from Miami. He's traditionally a right tackle. He didn't play anything else on the offensive line. Some people say he could play guard in the NFL level, but what'd you think of him this past season with Miami?
He could play guard, but that kind of seems like, to me, it seems like a waste. If you're getting this guy, he's a big kind of mauling classic power right tackle. I think he was excellent for Miami, and He did. He played pretty well in the championship game too, but no, he's a really good player. I don't really see anything wrong with him being the top guy in terms of Spencer Fano might have an argument for that from
Utah.
Yeah, the Ute, but I don't think this is a bad guy to have at the top of the board at all. I think he can easily slot in as a day one, not just a day one starter, but he could really be kind of that prototypical kind of run mauling, road grading right tackle, big power right tackle. And he does not get bull rushed either. That's another thing. So if you watch Francis play, he does not get bull rushed. And it's just because he anchors well and he's strong. He's just strong as hell.
And he's been linked to the Arizona Cardinals a lot, but there has been some talk in the recent weeks that the Cardinals could move off of that 3rd overall pick and move down. And the teams that have been linked to possibly trading up are the Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see if the Arizona Cardinals stay at 3 because they've been linked to Maui Noah, and they do need offensive line help. They also been linked to Ty Simpson, where teams that have two first-round picks, if they can move down the Cardinals and then get another pick at the end there of the draft, they could get Ty Simpson, which would be interesting. Considering Jacoby Brissett, I think this is just horrible planning by him and his agent. Jacoby Brissett is not showing up to OTAs because in a recent press conference, Monty Ossenford, the Cardinals GM, said there's nothing set in stone as far as a starting quarterback, and that hurt Jacoby Brissett's feelings. And he wants a raise and a long-term extension when I think it's pretty clear, Jacoby, that you are a bridge quarterback this year and you could be easily replaced. And I was surprised they brought you back, even though he had a pretty damn good season, but they did finish with only 3 wins. So I would be at least a bit surprised if they draft Ty Simpson now and Jacoby Brissett is traded to go be a backup quarterback somewhere.
That would be interesting, and it would just be another chapter in the Jacoby Brissett being used as a bridge emergency option wherever he goes. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of mind-boggling because I understand the agent's got to do what the client, well, obviously what the client wants, but also to try to get the best possible situation for the client. But there also has to be some realism there, right? That Jacoby Brissett is not a long-term answer for any team. He might have to be because their situation's so bad, but no team is going to go into it wanting him to be that long-term answer. So, the Ty Simpson thing's interesting too. And if a team drafts Ty Simpson, they're going to have a decent offensive line.
No, definitely. And that's why I think the Arizona Cardinals will be looking at Francis Mauigoa and also Maui Noah, and also the other guy that you mentioned, Alon, Spencer Fano from Utah, who could play right tackle, could play left tackle, could play any position on the offensive line. What do you think of Spencer Fano?
That guy's amazing. I think he should be a left tackle. That's where I'd put him. But yeah, he can play any position, any of the tackle positions. I would never put him at guard just because you don't need him to be. Also, he's really tall, and I like shorter guards. I think that's always better to have guards who are a little bit shorter, can keep their pad level low. But this guy's done nothing but play well at Utah. He's a freak athlete too. I mean, he is fast, and I know speed is not the most important thing for offensive linemen, but he can really get out there in space and block in space. So I think that's why I go back and forth with him and Francis, because I actually think Spencer Fano is the more enticing prospect, if that makes sense, because I think the physical tools are just better. And maybe the only knock on him is that he played at Utah, but it's not like Utah plays slouches, and he was coached up by a damn good coach who's now the head coach over at Michigan. So Spencer Fano is a good pick. Whoever gets him is going to be very happy. And Utah always puts out pretty good offensive linemen.
Would you say that this may be a horrible comparison, but would you say Spencer Fano is the Arvell Reese and Francis Mauigoa is more David Bailey?
Yeah, so production, and you kind of know what you're going to get. And then the other, Fano is the Arvell Reese. Is this guy could be a total weapon, game changer kind of guy because of the. Yeah, I don't think that's a reach. I think it's actually closer to that than maybe what a lot of people think. And it's not because Fano hasn't been productive, just how Arvell Reese has not been productive, but that ceiling is so high. So I actually really like that. I think that's a good pull, Derek. That's awesome.
Okay, as far as the other offensive linemen, you got Monroe Freeling, and he's the guy that most people like. They're like, there's a lot of fluctuation in opinions when it comes to these offensive linemen. Some think they could be left tackles or right tackles or guards. Unanimously, everyone's like Monroe Freeling is going to be a left tackle, and it's just because he didn't have a lot of experience at Georgia, only 1 year as a starter, but he looked damn good. So what do you think of Monroe Freeling, Alon?
He reminds me a lot of Colton Miller, actually.
I've heard that comparison a lot. I think Chris Sims had that comparison. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Hey, good for Chris. Good for me. But yeah, no, he reminds me a lot of Colton Miller. I think it's a guy that he's got the frame. He's about 6'7". He's a really good athlete. He's great in space, can be good in zone blocking. Georgia kind of runs just about everything. So we've seen him play in a more pro style, nowadays pro style offense. And we've seen him go against the best of the best in the SEC. So, and they've been dominant. So I don't have any issues with that. I think the biggest problem for Monroe is going to be how he adjusts to the NFL. So like, is his run blocking going to be there when he has to be more of a power blocker? That's kind of what I'm concerned about. And you know what? That's always been a concern with Colton Miller, even though Colton Miller is a pretty good left tackle. So I actually think that if you pick him, it's not a risk pick. It's not a risky pick. He might not be the top guy. You know, Caden Proctor might actually be better than him, even though Caden's got his own issues on the field with his play. But I think Monroe's another good player.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Caden Proctor because you watched him a lot at Alabama. He's just huge. Like, what is he like? Close to 400 pounds. Like, he's a mammoth of a human being. You could play him also at guard, I've seen. But just your thoughts on Caden Proctor, where I guess there's a worry of an attitude problem with him as well. But for the most part, I think a lot of scouts are high on him because of the size.
Yeah, the size is why they love him. There was in college a bit of a weight concern. Part of me wonders if that's more because of the multiple offense that Kalen DeBoer likes to run, because he did get up to like 370, and he may have even gotten above that in terms of his weight. But you know, he's not going to be used the way he was in the NFL, like he was in college. Like they're not throwing screen passes to him or anything like that. But the guy's also, he's a freak athlete, and he will get his shot at being a starting tackle in the NFL. The question there is, like you said, the commitment. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that he was going to transfer to Iowa and then he decided to come back. So I don't know, but he was a 3-year starting left tackle in the SEC. And you know what? Go turn on his tape against Georgia, not the SEC championship game, but the regular season game. Mm-hmm. He allowed 0 pressures against freaking Georgia. So the guy can play. It's just a question of, can you untap his physical talent and can you make sure that he does not get exposed? And what I mean by that is there are times where he gets lost in the stunt game and the twist game. So if you can sort that out with him, get him a little more up to speed on what his responsibilities will be like in the NFL, then I think you end up with a good player. For him, I'm thinking mid to late first round. If he goes in the second round, it's just because he slips on people's boards. But I think in a lot of drafts, he would be a mid to late first round talent.
I think teams like the Browns and Eagles will look at him. Like if the Browns take a wide receiver with their first pick at 6, I can see them going back later on and then getting Caden Proctor. And then we know the Eagles like to draft based off of, future needs. And they need a wide receiver potentially with A.J. Brown being traded off the team. But I could see it where Lane Johnson retires in time and they want Caden Proctor to be right there. That's another situation with the 49ers, which I'll bring up in a little bit here. But as far as other offensive line prospects that could go in the first round, you also got Blake Miller from Clemson. Played, I think he's got the most experience of any tackle, where I think he has like 54 starts at the college level. But I think people say that he needs to be a little more physical with his size. With the size that he has, he could show a little more physicality. What do you think of Blake Miller, Alon?
Blake Miller's good. I don't know if he's gonna go in the first round. I actually I just don't know. I mean, he is a tackle and it's a position of need. He's good at Clemson. He's got the physical traits, and maybe he needs to gain a little bit of weight, but that always happens when you go to the NFL. You do. I think what's working against him is just how listless Clemson has looked like at times over the past few years. And that's not all his fault. He's one offensive lineman, but that can be tough. I think the other problem with him is his pass rush is great, but his pass protection is great, but the problem is can he be a guy who can actually get it done in the run game? And that can be very difficult. If you draft him, you're looking at a guy you're going to have to run zone schemes.
Yeah. And then as far as the other two I have here, they're more projects. I think people look at them in later rounds or later of the first round and then maybe into the second round. Caleb Lomu, who was the left tackle opposite of Spencer Fano at Utah. And there's Maxi Hanachor, who I'm kind of fascinated by, where he didn't play a lot of football. He only played football. He's from ASU. He played right tackle. He's from Nigeria. He only started playing football in 2021, where he played basketball initially at a community college in LA. And then his coach told him, you shouldn't be playing basketball. You need to play football. And then he played football, was a quick learner, went to ASU when they threw him in the fire immediately. And he played well and became all team on the all offensive line or all tackle, whatever it is for the ASU in that conference. So yeah, Maxi Hanachor could be a project, but it could be a great guy that you could develop and in time could become a great tackle.
Yeah, it's a total project pick. Has the athletic ability. Was at the Senior Bowl. Can move very well. His feet are great because of the basketball background.
Didn't Mike Vrabel and him get into it at the Senior Bowl, where Vrabel was trying to guard him, and Hanachor was just like messing around with him, and Vrabel was like, "Okay, chill out here." Okay.
Was that I think that was at the pro day, right? That was
maybe at the pro day. Then.
Yeah, I think that was at the ASU pro day, and Mike Vrabel decides to get hands on with Max. So I thought that was interesting. The one thing
interesting headline, especially going on with most recent stuff. Anyway,
not just Diana, but also I think the thing with some of these project players is it's tough, and I think about a guy who was a supreme athlete and picked the wrong sport to play, probably. Menelik Watson, who was a pretty good offensive lineman for Florida State, who was a project player and just never really panned out in the NFL. That's the risk that you have with these guys who haven't played football for a long time. That being said, as far as a prospect goes, Max is better, and he has better college production than Menelik did. But I just point that out as an example of the risk you run with drafting guys like this. I would wait till like the third round to get him. If he's there, he might go at the end of the second.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I've seen either first round or second round. You're talking about Hanachor?
Yeah, I would not. What I'm saying is I would not draft him in the first round.
Gotcha. What about Caleb Lomu?
Lomu, if I really need someone, and you always need tackles, then yeah, I wouldn't feel bad about that, because he's pretty much a finished product, and he was good at Utah.
And as far as the guards, you got a guy in, I'm going to butcher his name here, but I'll go for it. Oliva Vega, Ione. Just call him Vega for short, because that's what he goes by. For Penn State, great in pass protection. He's probably going to be a top 15 pick here. I think he's got Baltimore Ravens written all over him. And then you got Chase Bissanis from Texas A&M. These are the true guards that probably will go in the first round. And I think Ione probably goes early in the draft. I think Bissanis could be a guy that you see that the San Francisco 49ers, the Houston Texans take later on in the draft.
Oh, I like that. I like Chase a lot from A&M, but Vega is the superior player, at least superior prospect. Baltimore Ravens is a great pick there for him, because that dude is just mean, nasty, physical, and he can block any kind of scheme. I don't think you're gonna have any problems with him being able to be productive immediately in the NFL. And guess what? They need interior offensive line help. So it makes perfect sense. I think there's one guy that you didn't mention, and it's Pregnon from Oregon, and he also plays guard. Yeah. So that's another guy to keep an eye out. But it's tough. At guards, it's all about what do you value? What kind of blocking style do you value? And how important are the physical traits? Because sometimes you get a guy with Vega, he could be like a Tyler Booker kind of guy who's a pretty good player, especially in college. But with guards, it's always, production can be really good, but if you don't have those physical traits, you're going to get beat up by guys like Dexter Lawrence on the interior of the line. So I think that is the beautiful thing about Vega. You don't have to worry about him there. Pregnon is a little lighter at only about 315. I think that's why Chase might be a more intriguing prospect. I think he can put a little bit more weight on his frame, and Chase, the kid from A&M. So I think there's a lot of good offensive linemen. Actually, I'm not saying that any of them are generational, but there's a lot of guys who have played a lot of football, and that's kind of one of the things about this draft. There's a lot of guys who have played a lot of football, and that can be a good thing, or it could mean that maybe they had to play a lot of football to be able to get that good, and that's their ceiling.
Let me ask you this, Alon, because this is a conversation we've been having when it comes to the 49ers, and they drafted 27. They have, I wouldn't say a lot of needs, but obvious needs at wide receiver and cornerback and pass rush. And then there's the situation with Trent Williams, where tomorrow John Lynch is going to speak at noon locally in the Bay Area, and he's going to do his pre-draft press conference. And you would think that's at that point he would want something wrapped up with Trent Williams. So it could be tomorrow where we get news that Trent Williams has signed a contract. If not, then this gets louder. And there's going to be a ton of questions about that tomorrow if there is no deal. And then you go into Thursday thinking, what if we don't have Trent? At this point, it sounds like, as John Lynch said, they're on the precipice of doing a deal. But let's be honest, too. It's not going to be a long-term deal. It'll probably be a 2-year deal with Trent where he's with you until he turns 40. Should you plan for the long haul here, where I always think you could find wide receivers in later rounds and cornerbacks. When it comes to replacing a Trent Williams, should you do that now? Should you do that where you see that there is a lot of talent at left tackle in this draft class? Should you address that now with a Caleb Lomu or a Hanachor and possibly play those guys at guard this season, have them learn from Trent Williams, and then slide them to left tackle in time?
That's an interesting prospect. And I think the guy that might be there and the value I think would be good or decent would be Blake Miller, who you mentioned already from Clemson. But yeah, I think that's a position where you have to address, because you know that Trent is not the solution for the long term, regardless of what happens. And you do have to plan for the future. Kind of stocking up tackles it's not quite like always looking for a quarterback that you can have on your roster, but it's close to that. And I think that is, so the question is, it's pick what you want here, right? Do you want to get like a Casey Concepcion, who's probably going to be there, I would think, and would fit really nicely with the Niners? Or do you go offensive line like Blake Miller or some of the guys that you mentioned? I think that would fit well, because Monroe Freeling, if he's there, but who's in love with Georgia is the Eagles, so they'll probably draft him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
if he's there,
I think he might not be there though.
Yeah, the Lions are so desperate for offensive line help. They need somebody to be the bookend to Penei Sewell moving to left tackle now. So I'm the least bit surprised. If Monroe Freeling is available, they'll go after him. I've asked numerous people that cover the Niners this question. I've asked Matt Mayoko and Larry Krueger, and you guys can hear it in the Krueger interview later today. I think that it's not done a lot when it comes to offensive linemen, where you don't play for one season and then you take a starting job. The only one I can think of really is Olu Fashanu, who was drafted with the New York Jets a couple years ago, and he didn't really have a spot on the offensive line to start. I think they wanted him to play guard or left guard, but I think he just sat for the first couple of games. And then Morgan Moses got hurt, then he slid to right tackle, and then when Tyron Smith retired, he took over. And you could say a lot of things about the Jets right now, but left tackle is not a deficiency for them right now with Olu Fashanu. The reason I bring this up is because multiple national mock drafts have the 49ers taking a tackle. It's Dane Brugler, it's Todd McShay, it's Mel Kiper Jr. All three guys see them taking either Maxi Hanachor or Caleb Lomu. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners, they traditionally haven't done this in the past where they addressed the offensive line in the first round, and since Matt McGlinchey in 2018. But I think that they don't want to do the song and dance every season with Trent Williams. So is it better to get an offensive lineman that can replace Trent in the first round as opposed to getting a wide receiver or a defensive back in the first round, or you can find more guys in the second round there? Or do they just draft the best guard available, because right now they don't have a guard. They don't have a starting guard on the team. And usually the 49ers, draft at a need as opposed to the best guy on the board. So if Chase Basanis is there, I think they just take him and they'll worry about the tackle situation later on. But it's an interesting conversation because I think you could go wide receiver. If Omar Cooper Jr. is there for the 49ers, they take him in a heartbeat, in my opinion, because he fits. He's a yards after the catch guy. He'd be perfect. Christian Kirk's only under contract for 1 year, so he could be your slot guy for the foreseeable future if you get Omar Cooper Jr. There's other corners. The corners, there's a ton of quarterback depth that could, move to the next round for them. They also could trade out of the pick at 27. And there's rumors about them trading with the Arizona Cardinals in division, where the Cardinals will move up to 27 to take Ty Simpson. And that would tell you what the 49ers think of Ty Simpson. But yeah, I think anything's on the table for the 49ers, but I think that we should be entertaining the idea of them taking a replacement for Trent Williams.
If Blake Miller's there, that would kind of be an ideal guy because he can play guard in the NFL and he can play tackle as well. So you could get that perfect scenario where you get a guy who's able to play, get experience in the system, not just watching. And then when you're ready to move on from Trent, you can just slot him over into that spot. But yeah, and you mentioned the Lions too. I think if Caden Proctor's there, they might grab him just because they like big, nasty, physical kind of guys like that. And well, every team does, and the Lions seem to have an affinity for the University of Alabama right now, the same way that the Eagles love the University of Georgia players. So we'll see, but I don't know. I know a lot of people are saying that they're probably going to go offensive line. I know it's a position of need, but they also got to get something out of this receiving core. And I know they're able to go out and address it with Mike Evans partially, and you're expecting more from.
Oh, lost Alon again. I'm sure he's saying you probably want to get more out of Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, we'll see what the 49ers do at pick 27. Jeremy Fowler yesterday reported that they could move out of the pick at 27.
Sorry.
I think we got Alon back. Alon, you there?
I pressed the wrong button. I was saying though,
no, you're good.
That you're expecting to see more out of Ricky Pearsall as well, but I think they still need some more wide receiver help. So I wouldn't be shocked if they went wide receiver, but yeah, the bigger position of need is offensive tackle. It is. There's no way around it.
No, definitely. It's just that the question is, do they get somebody that would be a project in year one that necessarily, could you force them to play left guard out of need and then move over to Trent Williams? I go back and forth with it. I think we're the 49ers. They could go anywhere. Whoever's available at 27, I think they'll decide, do we like this wide receiver? Do we like this cornerback? Do we like this tackle? Do we like this guard? Or should we just trade down and get multiple picks for later on? We shall see, and we'll talk about it way more as we're coming up on the draft on Thursday. Before we get out of here, Alon, we didn't address it last podcast. We brought it up a week ago, and we don't have time for Jackass of the Week and Pop Culture Catch-Up because really I don't think of any good options this week, and I haven't really keeping up with movies or anything when it comes to Pop Culture Catch-Up. But we'll do that next weekend if we have time. The Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel situation, that came to a head, and no pun intended there. I'm not trying to be funny either, where Diana Rossini resigned from The Athletic earlier this week. And there was an investigation from The Athletic. We still don't know the outcome of that. But I think that this pretty much, Diana Rossini put out a statement basically, saying, I can't believe that we're getting this as much breath as we are with me allegedly having an affair with Mike Vrabel. She didn't deny it. I think she was more upset that The Athletic didn't have her back in this whole thing, and now there's questions being asked about her involvement with Mike. My thing is, her contract, I guess, was up in June. She's going to land on her feet. She's probably going to go to Barstool or another publication. She could just break news on her own. I think she's that damn good. It's not, in my opinion, you could say I'm naive. I don't think she was breaking stories because she was sleeping with Mike Vrabel. I think she was breaking stories because she got good information. I don't think she was sleeping with the whole league here. I think it was where she just had one isolated situation with Mike Vrabel. Now, there's other things in the past with Scott McLuhan, a whole thing with his wife alleging that Diana Rossini was doing sexual favors to get information. And I think ESPN did an investigation and saw that nothing happened with that. But now you see this stuff, and it's hard to deny that something was going on there. So that's unfortunate. I feel bad for her and everything that's gone on with her in social media. And it's not the same thing as Joy Taylor. I don't care what anybody says. It's not the same thing. I think Diana Rossini has a lot of respect as a journalist in this league, in the NFL, covering it. And she's just in a fortunate situation where Joy Taylor was using people to get a job and making up and possibly going to make up phony stories in order to get them. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate, and I don't think that she needed to resign. I think that there could have been a scenario where she keeps her job still. And is anything going to happen to Mike Vrabel? No, absolutely not. He'll keep coaching the football team, and he'll be fine. And eventually, he'll address everything with his team and with the media. But for Diana Rossini, I understand this is a blemish on her career, but I do think in time she'll go back to reporting the NFL and being a damn good journalist.
Yeah, aside from what the ethics and morals are regarding her and Mike Vrabel having a relationship, not having a relationship, this is about her contract being up, and then the New York Times / The Athletic using this whole thing as a reason probably not to re-sign her. I do not like that at all. She's a darn good reporter. She breaks a lot of news, breaks a ton of stories, goes on multiple shows, does a really good job for The Athletic, getting them, subscribers and stuff like that. I mean, she goes on with Rich Eisen, and she's everywhere. She breaks so many stories. And if the New York Times / The Athletic, because the New York Times owns The Athletic, if they're going to hide and basically, ethically and morally, give me a freaking break. Give me a break. She's one of your best people, one of your most talented people that you have on staff, and you're using this as an excuse. There's a couple things I wonder. Number one, if she was still under contract and her contract wasn't coming to an end, would they have done this? The other thing is, do they really think there was an ethic? Like she's getting these stories just because it may be, sleeping with someone or having an affair with someone? I'd seriously doubt it, because like you said, Derek, that means she'd have to be in bed with the entire league. And then we got to start questioning every insider. All these insiders, are they all disinformation? Is this all because they're sleeping with people too? I don't think so. This really actually does piss me off. She shouldn't be losing she shouldn't be taking a hit to her professional reputation for this, and she will land and she will have plenty of options, but I think it's a complete joke. And I laugh at some of these media companies who take these hard stances on stuff like this. Give me a freaking break. Your company just got worse because you let her go.
I agree with you. I think that she was a damn good reporter. I think that we got a guy in the chat here, MB34012, saying she was freaky like that. Those videos were telling. Yeah, the stuff with her husband, that's unfortunate, where you look back at a lot of stuff, she calls him out. That's something that she'll have to figure out with her husband. And also he asks, why is Mike Vrabel acting weird? Why is he dodging the media? Yeah, I mean, that is true. He's not doing the pre-draft press conference with Elliot Wolf. I don't know if he's done that in the past. There will have to be a day where Mike Vrabel addresses this, and that will be unfortunate for him and his family. I don't know if he comes clean about the whole thing. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to say anything, really. But there will be a day where, coming up pretty soon here, after they draft in the first round, he will have to talk about the draft pick, and eventually when they trade for A.J. Brown, he's got to talk about that as well. So he can't just, for a guy that is the face of the organization as head coach and talks about the players and their off the field stuff, he is going to have to address this eventually. For Diana Rossini, she's broken stories in the past attached to Mike Vrabel. I mentioned last time she had that Julio Jones story when he got traded from Atlanta to Tennessee. She broke that, probably because of her connection with Mike Vrabel. I won't deny that. But there is, and I'm not saying like they were sleeping together at the time. I'm not insinuating that. But what I'm saying is Diana Rossini has connections to a lot of teams. I don't think that she was sleeping with Kirk Cousins or John Spytek to get the story that Kirk Cousins will eventually sign with the Raiders. I don't think she's sleeping with Clint Kubiak. So that's where I draw the line where, she probably has a romantic relationship with Mike Vrabel. I'm not denying that. What I am denying is that she's sleeping with everybody in order to get information. No, I think that's bullshit. So that's all I got to say about that.
It's total BS. And look, we can all look at the ethical side of it. Yeah, cheating's horrible. It ruins families. It breaks people. It's awful. It really hurts, right? But from just a professional standpoint, yeah, was there a lapse in judgment if they are having an affair? Of course there was on both their parts.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that everything she's reported in the past is now not legitimate, or she got it in an illegitimate way. It just doesn't mean that. So I wish this story would go away for both of their sakes, because
It will. It will.
it will once the season rolls around. But Diana Rossini's good at her job, and she'll keep doing her job. And Mike Vrabel's good at his job, and he'll keep doing his job. Now, I just wonder if she was still under contract, if we'd be hearing a lick about this. I bet the story would be buried.
I don't know, just because there's so much heat going on with it, and the Athletic they probably got pressured in the situation where they had her back initially, and then they said, we got to investigate this, and it probably is true. And at that point, like, can you have a reporter that has that relationship? And again, journalistic integrity, please. Like, Adam Schefter is doing a lot of things to get stories. I'm not saying he's sleeping with people, but I do believe that it's been well documented. He sends Blue Label, very expensive, or very, very expensive alcohol to GMs to get information. It's pretty clear to me that Tom Pelissero has a relationship with Mike McCarthy on a professional level, but yes, he does get information from him. It's clear who is tied to who. It's just unfortunate that this came out with Rossini and Mike Vrabel. So yeah.
You think they go to Denny's together? McCarthy and Pelissero?
Denny's?
Well, I always figured McCarthy's kind of a Denny's guy.
He looks like a Denny's guy. He's
right.
Whatever, like, the go-to spot is, like a diner in Pittsburgh. Like, he's just such a Pittsburgh guy through and through that, yeah, he's very old-fashioned in that way.
That guy's going to a diner and he's like, yeah, I'll give you some information, but we got to get breakfast first at 2 p.m. And they go to the diner and have pancakes or whatever he likes.
Exactly. As MB says in the chat here, Street saying Tom sleeping with Mike. Yeah, that could be the new rumor here.
Oh, yeah,
all right, everybody, that's going to be it for today for a little Just Your Opinion, man. We got some stuff lined up for you this whole week. So later today at 5 o'clock, if you're watching on the stream right now, check out my interview with Larry Krueger that will be on YouTube. And we go over the NFL draft and the 49ers. And I talked to him for about an hour. So, yeah, check that out later today, 5 o'clock with me and Larry Krueger. If you're listening on the podcast, that'll come out early tomorrow morning on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I think in the afternoon on YouTube, I'll be doing a mock draft with my little brother, Nick. And we'll be going through the first round of the NFL draft. That should be available for you guys Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday afternoon, I think on podcast and YouTube, we will have the interview with John Middlecoff, my good buddy from back in the day from 95.7. He does a 3 and Out podcast now. Me and him will discuss this NFL draft and some of the storylines from this offseason. And then finally, me and Milan will be back together on Wednesday night to do one final show before the draft kicks off on Thursday. So thanks, you guys. Thanks to you guys for joining us today. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Rocka New Era. Oh, sorry, not Rocka New Era. He's not even here. He doesn't even like talking the NFL stuff. Thanks to Ernie One. Thanks to MB34012. It's a hell of a name. Thanks to the Skills Report. Thanks to Danny Golding TV. Thanks to Tribe 69 Dudes and your freaky texts all the time. And to my guy Danny Dunn for watching the game with me and being the first person in the chat today. Look out for all the stuff that's going on this week. And we'll see you guys. Me and Alon. I'll see you on Wednesday, my friend. And say what you always say.
Real quick, Tribe 69 Dudes might need to be investigated, Diana Rossini style, just for the things that person said. I mean, they might need an ethics investigation there. But I was going to say, in light of going to WrestleMania, hey, you guys might think wrestling is fake, but that's just your opinion, man.
But it probably is.
And it probably is.